watching E.T.N, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Share and subscribe.
Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob. This video we're going to do a movie review for Furious 7. Furious 7, the 7th movie in the Fast and the Furious series. A series that has really gotten better with age. I mean, these movies that come out almost every couple of years have really picked up from, Tokyo Drift and then Fast and Furious, and just going forward, they've just gotten better with age. So the 7th installment also brings us to watch the last performance for late actor Paul Walker. And this movie obviously stars Paul Walker, as I just said, Vin Diesel, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Natalie Emanuel, for those of you who are Game of Thrones fans. Yes, Natalie Emanuel, who plays, for lack of a better term, Daenerys Targaryen's sidekick or right-hand man, so to speak. And, of course, Jason Statham. So a very good cast. Tyrese Gibson, Ludacris, a lot of the familiar faces that we've known for the last couple of years in this series. And if there's one thing I got to say about this movie that differs from all the prior ones, is I was very surprised, even considering what went down with Paul Walker. I was surprised at the amount of feelings in this movie, the feels, the emotional weight that it brought. Because it wasn't just the emotional weight of watching Paul Walker's last performance and watching Brian O'Connell do his thing, but there was some really good emotional weight brought in with Letty and Vin Diesel, or rather Dom Toretto, and couple that with this mind-blowing action. I mean, if you're an action junkie and you like special effects and crazy stunts, this movie is for you. Most notably, you guys have seen some of it in the commercial with the car jumping from one building to another. Or, I mean, I don't want to say too much, but there's a lot more than what they've shown you in the trailers and on the commercial spots. And this one, it's a very interesting story as well, because we all know Jason Statham plays Deckard Shaw, who's looking for revenge for his brother, who we all are very familiar with from the prior movie. And he's out to get Dom Toretto and his crew for what happened in London. But aside from that, there's also another very interesting tale that includes a new technology called God Eye, or the Eye of God. And this is basically like any person's or any fugitive's worst nightmare. No matter where you are on Earth, this device can track you down to the moment within hours. And in the wrong hands, it could be very dangerous. And so that's another part of the tale. And then everything just gets together and becomes one big, very fast and very furious movie. No pun intended. Oh, no pun intended. But another thing I liked about this movie, too, is it kind of went back to the roots of some of the earlier movies, which involves a lot of driving. And yes, there is one highway scene that is just phenomenal. Excellent. The way it was shot, the cinematography, the things that were going on in that scene. I mean, the person who thought up of this scene and wrote it and storyboarded it, just genius. And, we even got to go back to the old neighborhood, and see some of the things we remember seeing in the first movie, like race wars. So a lot of good elements were kind of, I felt that this movie probably had the most car related chase scenes than some of the last ones, which were more involved with like heist and stuff like that. And, Jason Statham did a great job as a villain. I mean, he's playing himself. Let's be honest. I mean, he's a very talented martial artist, but there was something about him in this movie that was so sinister. And he had some great fight scenes in this movie with some of our top dogs. Obviously, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson playing Hobbs, and of course, Dominic Toretto. So, and that was just great to see. It was just so good to see. I mean, these fight scenes, man, when you guys see them, you're going to be like just floored. And, there's some things that happen that'll make you laugh. It'll make you kind of raise your eyebrow and be like, really? I don't want to give it away. It's just, I'm not trying to spoil everything, but there's nothing really major to spoil in this movie. I mean, we've seen the premise is still there. The team gets together. They all have their particular skill and they all set forward and they concentrate on what they do best. So that way the team works cohesively and effectively. And, aside from that, all the action, all the wonderful cinematography, the way things were shot, you know, the stunts, the incredible stunts. We have a very, very good story that not only highlights Brian and Mia's relationship, but also Letty and Dominic Toretto's. And more so with Letty was still struggling. You know, we saw in the last movie, she stayed with Dom, they stayed together, and it looked happily ever after, but that's not really the case. She's still struggling with who she is. She's still having a hard time accepting the things that are happening around her. And it does affect their relationship. And it also affects how they would work together. But outside of that, and it's a very, very good story in how it happens. But outside of that, outside of those two what I thought were very good stories within this grand action movie, everything else just was flowed together so well. It was just such a fun movie to watch. It's rather long. It's about 2 hours and 17 minutes. But it's just action packed. You never really feel like you're sitting there for that long. So Jason Statham did great. Kurt Russell was fun to see. I hadn't seen Kurt Russell on screen in such a long time. And for the role that he had, he did a very good job. He just played a great role. And he was very, very good in his supportive role. It was just nice to see him. Growing up as an 80s kid, I was a big fan of Kurt Russell. I loved him in Tango and Cash, him and Sylvester Stallone, and some of his other movies. He was just hilarious. But, you know, it was just good to see him. And the rest of the crew, obviously, is always fun to watch together. Tyrese Gibson obviously stole the show many times with his humor, his uncertainty about every plan. If you watch the movies, you know that every time they come up with a plan, he's the one to stand out and say, "This is crazy, y'all. This is some crazy shit. I don't understand." And it's just very funny. It's fun to watch. Overall, just a very, very good movie. And I just want to warn you now that, because I don't want to give away spoilers, I don't want to say too much, but bring a hanky. Bring a hanky, because there are some parts that I don't care how much of a tough person you are, they're going to tug on your heartstrings so hard that you can't help but just shed a tear, or at least feel some sort of emotion when watching what takes place on screen. And I also like to say that the makeup team in this movie did a good job taking Paul Walker's brothers and throwing in enough highlights to really make them look, I mean, they all look very similar already, but there's an age difference there, and they provided enough makeup for these guys to really sell that Walker was in this whole movie. And in areas where they couldn't pull it off, they did very, very clever camera angles and clever lighting, so that way you know he's there, you feel like it's him, but you don't necessarily see his face, and you see enough highlights of his face that it convinces you that it's him. I only know this because I knew that the brothers were in the movie. I know a lot of people did. And if you do pay attention hard enough, and I really wanted to look for the areas where it was not Paul Walker but his brothers, and I did see them. But nonetheless, they did a solid job with that. It was just a fantastic movie. If you're a fan of the series, I definitely recommend it. I feel personally it's the best one in the series, because not only, and it's not because of the Paul Walker thing, but they brought back a lot of the car elements of what these guys do best, which is drive around cars and cause havoc. But also, I thought there was a lot of good star power. You know, Jason Statham in this movie fighting The Rock and fighting Dominic Toretto. Even Djimon Hounsou is in this movie, who, you know, it's always nice to see him. He's always fun to watch as well. I'm sure if you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy, he was funny in that for his small time. And this one, he plays a pretty important role in terms of that device. And it was very, very pleasant to see Natalie Emmanuel in this movie. I love her in Game of Thrones, even though she has a very small role. She's a very pretty girl. And she played the centerpiece in some story elements as well. So overall, a fantastic job, a very fun movie. I loved it. It's probably my favorite one since the original. And it's not to say the other ones weren't good. I've actually loved this whole series, with the exception of the second one. Second one I wasn't too crazy about. But overall, I would recommend go see Furious 7, especially if you're up to beat and up to speed with the series, and if you enjoy it. This is Rob signing off for E.T.N, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Take it easy.
Thank you for watching E.T.N. Don't forget to comment, share, and subscribe. Join the nation's Facebook page to meet other subscribers, or visit E.T.N's Facebook page and Twitter page. Links for all are in the description.